within Steeler Nation, man. We had not even had some new action. We've been having action this whole offseason. It's crazy, right? Just when you think it will be a normal offseason, just when you think, well, you're not going to get too much more, or at this stage, oh, it's got to be died down by now. No, ladies and gentlemen, we just keep this thing rolling. So, for those that are unaware, Steven Nelson, corner for the past 2 years for the Pittsburgh Steelers, officially has been released by the Steelers. And it was a crazy little scenario right there, man. I don't know if were you aware of the tweets that were going on prior to him getting released, dude?
I did, yeah. Which a lot of people made a really big deal about. Yeah. I didn't think it was a big deal at all. It seemed, well, I'm interested to hear your perspective, but from my standpoint, it seemed like 2 or 3 days ago, the Steelers let Steven Nelson try to find a trade.
Yeah.
So we weren't going to keep him one way or another. We basically decided, hey, we're going to pick Joe over you, and we're just going to roll with the corners we have. Now, if we sign someone else, that remains to be seen. Yeah. And then I'm guessing a trade just couldn't be worked out. And then Steven Nelson was like, hey, man, could you just release me so I could try to find a team sooner rather than later? That's all I took from it. I didn't think it was like a big deal at all.
No, man, you're right, dude. The team had already decided that they were going to be either releasing him, right? That's what they had decided. And they gave him the opportunity to facilitate a trade. Now, for Steven Nelson, I 100% support his method, though, in terms of once they knew that, okay, you're going to allow me to get a trade, and clearly the trade wasn't facilitating, regardless of what it may be. I know his contract definitely plays a part of that, because if you trade him, you have to pick up that contract and go for it, and so forth and things like that. But if you're Steven, you don't want to wait for a trade
Definitely
to facilitate, because for the Steelers, it doesn't hurt for them if they trade you today or if they trade you in August. But if you're Steven Nelson, that's a big difference, especially if they are not able to trade you come August and they got to release you. Now all the money's dried up. You look at Adoree Jackson, just signed a mega deal with the New York Giants. Plenty of people make the case that Steven Nelson is just as good or better than him. So if you're Steven and you see that deal take place 2 days prior to that, yeah, I'm with you, Steven. I'm over here like, yeah, look, we ain't got to play this game anymore, baby. Just go ahead and give me my release. Don't hold me hostage. Let me go. And that's ultimately what happened. So the people that, tried to make it or villainize Steven from that standpoint, I think they were the ones that weren't aware of the situation as a whole. And we hit on that last episode as well. We just talked about how it was more so Steven asking for, his trade after they came to him and said that, hey, this is the plan going forward. Because if you listened a month ago, or it was either a month or 2 months ago, he was on Steelers.com doing an interview talking about like he's going to be signing extensions and things like that.
I think I saw him on the Steelers YouTube too. Yeah.
Like that was the thing. So this kind of, not only was it sprung on us, but imagine him. I mean, you literally have this guy on the Steelers network talking about, the future with this organization. And then 2 months later, it's, all right, you're no longer here. So it is definitely one of those crazy situations like that. But I don't think Steven Nelson's in the wrong at all for asking for his release. And you could even see him thank the organization right after that, right? When they did release him. Man, this is a first class organization. I really appreciate you guys. So, I don't have an issue with it, man.
No, I don't either. I don't blame him at all. And some people were thinking that he didn't want to stay in Pittsburgh, but I don't think that's the case either.
Yeah, I don't think so. I thought from our conversations with him, he seemed like he
spoke very highly of it.
You look at how him and Joe communicate publicly and privately. Obviously, Joe, he was talking to, the post that he made, it was like right after Steven Nelson got released, just talking about how they pushed each other to be the best, how they fed off each other, and they really appreciated that in each other's game. I never got the perception that Steven didn't want to be here or that he was out trying to find more money either. It just,
he had a pretty good contract.
Absolutely. It's just one of those things, man, when you talk about the business element of it, when you talk about this pandemic and the salary cap being affected the way that it was, this is what happens. You have to make some of these tougher decisions based on what you have available to you. So if you're looking at it and you say, well, all right, I got to either get rid of Steven Nelson or Joe Hayden. All right, we're more comfortable with Joe. All right, this is going to be tough, but hopefully a guy like Cam Sutton can step up. Hopefully a guy like James Pierre can step up. Hopefully a guy like Justin Lane can step up. Like that becomes the new idea, or at least for next year, right?
Yeah, it's nothing against Steven Nelson at all. It was just strictly business from what it seems. And everything that we've heard in our interview, and then even Jerry Dulac tweeted it out that Steven Nelson's a good dude, no complaints from teammates, never disrupted anything. So people were just running with that tweet and taking it in all different directions. What do you think then So yes, it is really smart to try to get out of here soon, like sooner rather than later, to try to get a better deal. I guess what's interesting with where he's at in his career, he's a little bit younger than some of the bigger name free agent cornerbacks. So do you think he's capable of getting like double digits?
Absolutely. I mean, you think about the 2 years he just came off of, right? Even though this year was the down year of the two, they were still very productive and showed something that he hadn't shown in his career. Even though he led the league, what was it, that last year in Kansas City where he had the however many interceptions that we signed him, right? It was still, well, man, you're so targeted. You're not proving that you're a great corner. You're just proving that if we throw the ball at your guy 30 times, you might get one pick. So it wasn't the same type of perception surrounding him. Whereas these past 2 years in Pittsburgh, we've seen him become a legit cover corner, a legit guy that can be cornerback one or a very high end cornerback number two. He showed that these past 2 years. So I do think his market is going to be better than when he was coming out of Kansas City, because that was the knock on him. I mean, we talked about the reports from Kansas City when we were the ones who were signing him. It was like, good luck, man. You can have this dude. He's trash. And they said because his time there, the 3 years he did nothing. And then that last year he kind of blew up. So it was a lot of uncertainty around him. Whereas now, that I don't feel like that's the perception. Now we're looking at him like, oh, this guy, he's legit. He can play out there. And it's going to be some teams that want that. Like I said, if they're paying like that for a Dory Jackson, and it's not a shot at a Dory, but Steven, these past 2 years has been playing crazy, like very high end ball. Now he got to get his cleat game right because he slips a lot. That came up a lot this year, the slippage. I don't really like the slippage. But outside of that, I'm like, man, this dude has shown that he can be a big time player.
Yeah, in his 2019 season, think of what we were saying about him and Joe Hayden. We were like, is this the best cornerback duo in the league right now? And then even last year, like, I think the secondary as a whole was down.
Yes.
Now, you could point to multiple people. Man, Joe Hayden had a bad game here or there. Maybe Steven Nelson had a bad game. The only one that I really remember is Buffalo. And I don't think Joe Hayden was even playing in that game.
He wasn't.
And that was Steven Nelson going up against Stephon Diggs. So
yeah. And
he had probably the best receiving season out of anyone last year.
Yeah, I was about to say Diggs was on one last year.
It's not like anyone was having the best success against him.
Diggs did that to a lot of people, so it's not a slight at Nelson. But man, what was I about to say? It was something about, geez. It was before you had brought up the Diggs thing. It threw my whole train of thought.
Oh, my bad.
I was like, oh yeah, you're right, Diggs.
2019.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Yeah. So we were talking about in 2019. Yeah, we talked about this guy in the same breath of Stephon Gilmore, who was the defensive player of the year. We talked about him against a guy like Trey White. Remember, that was the thing. People,
those stats they were throwing out. I was all about it.
They were like, well, look at the numbers. I mean, no touchdowns allowed. Look at the yardage. This is allowed. Look at the, like, they threw all those things out. So to me, I'm just like, a year later, he didn't fall off a cliff. He still was who he was. It was just now because those other guys weren't as, heavily in the conversation on Defensive Player of the Year. I feel like all of the statistics kind of, went out the room.
Everything went down a little bit last year.
But as a whole, man, I just think that Steven is still going to be able to play some really good ball and is going to get on with I don't know the style of team in terms of his being a contender or not, but I do think he's going to get compensated very nicely, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? Cornerback wise.
Right. That's the thing, man. Some people believe that the replacement is already here. Some people believe that Cam Sutton is ready to take that next step. If he is, great. And I hope he is. And I do think he will be. But that's only one element of it, because as the NFL is in 2020, 2021, this time frame, you legit need 3 starting corners. Your cornerback 1, cornerback 2, and your slot corner, because of how often you're in sub package ball. So even if Cam Sutton is the guy that's ready to take that step outside, now you're asking yourself, well, is the slot replacement in-house? Where there's James Pierre, Justin Lane. Now, we already said their bodies don't fit slot corners. Their bodies are more for outside corners. But then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, are you moving around Cam Sutton a lot? What do you want to do with that? You can also outsource, right? We talked about potentially going out and getting some of these not older guys, but veteran guys, right? It's some veteran names that are out here.
Richard Sherman. Yeah. Some people are even talking about Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah. So it's names out there and things like that. But we just got to see, like, could we get those type of guys? We joked about the avoidable year thing because that is available. We do know it will have some verification in terms of just the signing bonus element. If you keep doing it, that number could add up. But as it pertains right now, I don't really think that it's the worst idea. But I also think the Steelers are kind of in an identity crisis in terms of how they're building their roster right now. Part of it looks like they're, hey, win now, one last ride for 7. But then the other half is like they're kind of half-heartedly doing that. We don't want to put too much baggage going forth after this year. So with that, it just looks like they're just doing an average job. It's like, all right, I like some of these moves, but then I don't like some of these moves. Okay, I think that can help, but you got this resource that you could use to go get even more help if you're really trying to win this year. But it's like they won't pull the trigger on some of those things. So that's why for me it's a little bit frustrating, man.
Right. Yeah, the positive spin on that is they just believe in the young guys stepping up, but there's no guarantee with that at all.
Yeah.
AJ Bouye too. Like, dude, there's,
like I said,
there's some names out there, man. I don't know what their market is necessarily because like I said, some of these dudes are a little bit older than Steven Nelson, so I don't know if they're going to be looking for like just the 1 or 2 year deals. But that could work for us. I don't know how much that's going to screw us this year. Now we have around $13 million in cap space. So we could get really creative with who we could bring in right now.
No, you could. And a couple of things just right there that it could be beneficial, but it also could hurt, right? We said AJ Bouye, we talked about Sherman and all these other guys. They come in, that's an immediate impact right now. That's immediate upgrade right now. That makes Cam Sutton just bump into the slot and be your slot guy for the rest of the year, right? You know that, but then you don't have to worry about the cornerback position. So it takes care of that issue this year. But the flip side is based on how you could do the contract with them. If you're going to get these guys on a 1-year deal, you know you're going to have a couple of $1 million remaining for your draft picks. So if you treat the voidable year thing and we do that again, you could run into the issue of what we did with Ben, right? Where because of the restructures, it ultimately where it was going to be 22.5 this year, regardless if he was on the field or not. That's the part where you got to be a little bit careful in terms of if we keep going the voidable year route.
Because what are those? Those are technically like 4 or 5 year deals.
Yeah.
So we could have in what, like 2026, 2025, you see what I mean? Randomly we have $30 million on the dead cap.
Exactly. So even
what the hell happened with this?
So even though the cap is expected to go up because of the new TV deals, if you have $30 million in baggage from voidable years, you're not getting the $200 million signing bonus. Now you got 170, or not signing bonus. Now you have 170 available from the cap standpoint because you already have 30 million up there from the voidable years that you already did for 1-year deals with people. So you could just see how one side you're like, all right, it can help you right now, but then the other side is it could affect us in the long run.
I wonder if they could front load those somehow, where they take a portion of those for next year since we're going to have so much salary cap space, and then you work some of the deals that we're given like TJ Watt and Minka to where those are backloaded. You know what I mean?
But once again, if I'm a player, I don't want to backload a contract.
Sure.
If I'm TJ, that doesn't make a lot of sense for me just because man, the older I get, I'm either, and if you're TJ, I'm looking at, all right, in 3 years after I sign my deal, I'm trying to hit another deal. I'm trying to get that restructure, that extension on it, right? That's the mindset. But if you have it backloaded, you don't get to the big chunk of your paydays. You'll never get there. You know what I mean? And then by the time it is there, well, hey, man, your salary, I mean, the cap, I just don't know, you know.
You were hurt a little bit last year.
Yeah, and then before you know it, you're a cap casualty. We don't play that game. I mean, it's great for the organization. And trust me, the organization, that's what they're going to present to them first, without a doubt. From experience, without a doubt. They're going to give them the, hey, this one's for the team. And then you're going to have to hit them back with the, well, listen, I love the team, but I got bills.